The Admiral's daughter kept losing weight day after day until she looked like a shadow of her own life, and 50 doctors still called it normal. In Norfolk, Virginia, Rear Admiral Robert Caldwell could command fleets with a word, yet he couldn't stop his 26-year-old daughter from disappearing in a hospital bed 10 feet from his hands. Then a new night nurse smelled something the lab would never flag. Bitter. Wrong. And every time the door sensor clicked after visiting hours, Emma's vitals crashed like a ship taking on water. If you've ever been told your pain was in your head because the numbers looked fine, this story is for you. Stay to the end and you'll learn how real harm hides in plain sight and how one pattern can save a life. Watch closely. Like the video and comment where you're watching from. The door click in that stairwell was not the first sound Rear Admiral Robert Caldwell had learned to fear. Months earlier, it had started with smaller noises, the kind a family barely notices until it becomes a pattern. A spoon set down too soon, a glass pushed away untouched, the soft scrape of a chair as someone stood up because sitting suddenly felt like work. Spring came late to Norfolk that year, damp air rolling off the Elizabeth River and settling into the old neighborhoods like a blanket that never fully warmed. The Caldwell house sat on a quiet street where the lawns were trimmed with the same precision as a parade ground. Inside, everything had a place. A shadow box of medals hung in the study. Framed photographs lined the hallway in straight, disciplined rows. You could tell, without meeting the man, that someone who lived here believed in order the way other people believed in faith. Emma Caldwell used to move through that order like she belonged to it, and like she did not. She was 26, quick with a grin, quick with an eye roll, quick to mock her father's habits and then kiss his cheek anyway. She had grown up inside the Navy's rhythms, early mornings, late nights, long deployments, homecomings that felt like holidays, and then the quiet months where she tried to pretend she did not worry every time a phone rang after midnight. On a Thursday in March, she came home with an envelope pressed flat against her chest, as if it might escape. "I got in," she said before she was even fully through the door. Caldwell looked up from the kitchen table where he was reading a briefing on his tablet, like he could not turn the commander off, even at home. He stared at her for one sharp second, then stood so fast the chair legs squeaked. "Say it again," he said. Emma held the letter out like evidence. "Stanford, Public Health, full track. They want me in the fall." For a moment, the Admiral's face did something unfamiliar. The tightness around his eyes eased. His mouth softened into a smile that looked younger than his rank. "My girl," he said, and his voice carried pride like a flag. Emma laughed, the sound bright alive. She moved toward him, and he wrapped both arms around her, a rare display of affection that looked awkward on a man built from structure. Over his shoulder, she glanced at the doorway. Derek Shaw stepped in without making the moment feel interrupted. He did not hover, did not force his presence. He simply appeared the way he always did, quiet and competent, holding a clipboard with the day's errands and a grocery bag in the other hand. "Congratulations," Miss Emma Derek said. Emma smiled at him. "Thanks, Derek. You can stop calling me Miss Emma. I'm not 12. Derek's expression shifted, a small smile that never showed teeth. "Habit," he said. "Good habit, though." Rear Admiral Caldwell nodded at Derek, like a man acknowledging another professional. "Make a note," Caldwell said. "We have a start date to plan for." Derek did not look at the clipboard. He did not need to. "Yes, sir." That was Derek's gift. He made things run. He took the noise out of the Admiral's life. He handled the schedule, the house, the calls, the uniform drop-offs, the dry cleaning, the groceries. In a town packed with sailors and civilians who lived by the sea, Derek moved with the steady pace of someone who had learned discipline the hard way and decided to keep it. Emma liked him. Everyone did. He had been with them for years. Long enough that his presence felt like part of the house itself, like a fixture that belonged in the hallway the same way the framed photos did. He had arrived after a rough period in his own life, introduced through Navy circles, a man who needed work and a chance. Caldwell gave him both, and Derek repaid that trust with devotion. He was always there when things needed doing, always ready, always calm. The first time Emma pushed away her dinner, no one panicked. It was a Tuesday in early April, the kind of evening where the rain came hard and the wind rattled the trees against the window. Derek had made chicken and rice a simple meal, clean, sensible. Caldwell ate because it was time to eat. Emma picked at the plate, chewed twice, then set her fork down and pressed a hand against her stomach like she was embarrassed by it. "I'm fine," she said before anyone spoke. Caldwell's eyes narrowed. "You ate lunch?" Emma nodded. "Yeah, just not hungry." Derek stepped in gently. "I picked up that protein shake you like," he said, sliding it onto the table. "Vanilla. I can put it on ice." Emma gave a grateful look like he had offered her a way out. "Maybe later," she said. Caldwell watched her stand, watched the way she braced a hand on the chair for a fraction of a second before walking out of the kitchen. It was nothing. It was everything. He waited until her footsteps faded. "She's tired," Derek said quietly, not as an excuse but as a fact. "She's been working hard on those applications. She'll bounce back." Caldwell did not answer. He stared at Emma's untouched plate, and something in his expression suggested a man looking at a map and realizing he did not know where the enemy was. A week later, Emma's jeans hung a little looser. 2 weeks after that, she started sleeping through her alarm, then laughing it off, then admitting with a shrug that did not hide the strain that she felt like her body had sandbags tied to it. "I just need to reset," she said. "I'll start running again. Eat better." Caldwell made appointments like he made plans. He called a primary care doctor. He called a specialist. He asked questions with the directness of a man used to being answered. The first round of labs came back clean. Normal blood counts, normal thyroid, normal metabolic panel. The doctor smiled and told Emma she might be stressed. Emma smiled back, polite, controlled. In the car afterward, she stared out the window as the rain streaked down the glass. "I guess I'm just dramatic," she said. Caldwell's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "You're not dramatic," he said. "You're my daughter. Something is off." By May, the off had a weight to it. Emma's face sharpened, cheekbones more prominent. Her laugh came less often. She started canceling plans with friends. She stopped going out. When she did, she came home early, eyes tired, shoulders slumped. Derek adjusted without being asked. He stocked the kitchen with easy foods, bland foods, gentle foods. Soup, toast, smoothies, supplements. He kept a little notebook on the counter with times and reminders like he was running logistics for a ship. He brought Emma a shake in the mornings and sat nearby until she finished it. "You don't have to babysit me," Emma would say, trying to sound annoyed, but not quite landing there. Derek would answer the same way every time. "I'm not babysitting, I'm helping." When Emma got dizzy on the stairs one afternoon, Derek was there before Caldwell even stood up. He guided her down carefully, one hand hovering at her elbow, his voice calm. "Easy. Sit. Breathe." Emma's eyes flicked to Caldwell like she hated herself for needing help. Caldwell's jaw clenched, a muscle jumping near his cheekbone. "Call the doctor," he said. Derek did not ask which one. "Yes, sir." The specialist parade began. Gastroenterology, immunology, endocrinology. A neurologist who asked Emma to walk heel to toe across a bright hallway and then told her nothing obvious was wrong. A dietitian who talked about calories and macros and then looked uncertain when Emma swore she was trying. They ran scans. They ran scopes. They ran tests with names that sounded like acronyms for aircraft. Each time, the results came back inside clean boxes labeled normal. Caldwell did not understand how his daughter could be disappearing while the numbers stayed steady. He understood ships. He understood mechanical systems. He understood what happened when something failed. There were signs, there were alarms, there were protocols. There was supposed to be a reason. In late May, Emma tried to joke about it at dinner. "Maybe I'm evolving," she said, forcing brightness. "Maybe my body is switching to solar power." Caldwell did not laugh. Derek did gently as if laughter might patch the air. Emma's fork trembled when she lifted it. Caldwell saw that tremor and felt something cold spread across his chest. "Enough," he said. Emma blinked. "What do you mean enough? I mean we are not playing this off anymore." Emma set her fork down slowly as if she did not trust her own hand. "I'm not playing it off. I'm trying not to scare you." Caldwell's voice lowered, controlled, dangerous in its calm. "You are scaring me." The words hit the room like a door shutting. Derek cleared his throat softly. "I can call Dr. Merritt again," he said. "He said if things change, he wants to know." Caldwell looked at Derek, then nodded once. "Do it." Derek's phone was already in his hand. By early June, Emma woke up one morning and could not keep water down. Her lips were dry, her eyes glossy, her skin too pale against the pillow. Caldwell stood over her bed like a man staring at a casualty report. "We're going in," he said. Emma's voice came out thin. "Dad, it's not that bad." Caldwell's answer was immediate. "Yes, it is." Tidewater Memorial Medical Center was a block of glass and concrete that smelled like antiseptic and coffee and exhausted hope. It sat close enough to the base that Navy families used it like an extension of the fleet. Staff had learned the unspoken rules: respect the rank, protect the privacy, speak clearly, do not make promises you cannot keep. Emma's admission moved fast. A private room, a special wristband, vitals monitors set up with quiet efficiency, nurses who offered water and blankets and soft voices. Rear Admiral Caldwell was polite, but his presence carried weight. He sat in the chair beside the bed like he had anchored himself there. He held Emma's hand when she fell asleep. He listened when doctors spoke. He asked pointed questions. He took notes on a legal pad like he was preparing for a briefing. Derek arrived with a bag of toiletries and Emma's own pillow. He placed them in the room without fuss, then stepped back near the wall like a man trained to be present without getting in the way. "Anything else you need?" Derek asked Emma. Emma looked at him and tried to smile. "Just stop making me feel like I'm about to die." Derek's eyes softened. "You're not," he said, and his voice carried certainty like a blanket. Caldwell stared at the monitor as if he could command it to reveal the truth. Emma's weight dropped again, 89 pounds. The nurses noted it. The dietitian adjusted the plan. Supplements, higher calorie options, careful monitoring. Emma's body did not respond the way it was supposed to. She drank the shakes. She tried the soups. She swallowed pills that made her nauseated and then apologized for it. "Sorry," she would whisper, voice shaky. "I'm trying." Caldwell would lean closer, his hand gripping the bed rail. "You don't apologize," he would say. "You fight." The doctors fought too in their own way. They ordered more tests. They consulted each other. They stepped into the hallway and spoke in hushed tones that went silent when Caldwell appeared. Their language was careful. "We are not seeing organ failure. Her labs are stable. We need to consider functional disorders. Stress can manifest physically." Caldwell's stare would sharpen every time he heard the word stress, like stress was an insult to what he was watching happen. One afternoon, a young resident tried to reassure him with the bright confidence of someone who had not yet been humbled. "Sir, the numbers are encouraging." Caldwell looked up slowly. "My daughter's face is encouraging," he asked. The resident went quiet. In those early hospital days, Derek became the bridge between Caldwell's outside world and the room that had become his entire universe. He handled phone calls. He brought updates from the house. He paid bills. He answered texts from Navy colleagues. He told Caldwell which meetings had been rescheduled, which favors had been called in, which specialist had agreed to consult. Caldwell did not question Derek's competence. He depended on it. There was comfort in Derek's reliability in the way he appeared at the same times, in the way he always carried a folder, always knew the next step. At night, when the hospital lights dimmed and the hallway quieted, Caldwell stayed awake. Emma slept in fragments, her breaths shallow. The monitor beeped steadily, a metronome that Caldwell began to measure his sanity by. Sometimes Emma would open her eyes and whisper, "Are you still here?" Caldwell would lean forward. Always. Once late at night, Emma stared at the ceiling and spoke like she was talking to herself. "I feel like I'm fading," she said. Caldwell's throat tightened. "You're here," he said. "I'm looking at you." Emma turned her head slightly, eyes wet. "I'm here, but I don't feel like me." Caldwell did not have an answer that could fix that, so he did the only thing he knew. He stayed. Outside, room 712, life continued. Nurses moved between patients. Security walked their rounds. A cleaning staff member mopped floors with headphones and swaying slightly to music no one else could hear. Doctors laughed quietly at the station when they thought the night was light. Families slept in chairs. Phones buzzed with messages. A vending machine ate $1 and refused to give it back. The hospital was a small city made of metal and fluorescent light and human fear, and most of it had no idea a decorated Admiral was losing control in a private room upstairs. Mia Parker lived in a different corner of that city. Her apartment was 15 minutes away in a building that smelled like old carpet and fried food from the unit below. She had a cheap desk pushed against the wall with nursing textbooks stacked in uneven piles and a calendar marked with red circles on the days her loan payment hit. She worked the night shift because it paid a little more and because it allowed her to pick up extra shifts when someone else called out. She was 29 and already tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. The hospital had taught her a specific kind of vigilance. Not dramatic, not heroic. Quiet, constant, the kind of attention that kept people alive when systems failed. She had learned it the hard way. 3 years into her career, she had caught a medication error that slipped past the computer checks because the barcode scanner was down and someone thought they could improvise. The patient had survived because Mia had trusted the odd feeling in her gut and double-checked the vial under the harsh light of the med room. That day had left a mark. She started carrying a small notebook in her scrub pocket, not for poetry, not for feelings, but for details that did not fit neatly into electronic charts. Times, smells, the way someone's skin looked under the fluorescence, the way a patient's voice changed when they lied about pain, the way families behaved when staff left the room. She did not call it instinct, she called it evidence. On her drive to the hospital, she often passed the base. She would see the silhouettes of ships, like dark teeth against the sky, and she would think about how the Navy trained people to notice small changes, small threats, tiny deviations. A slight vibration in the hull, a flicker on a radar screen, a sound that did not belong. Hospitals were not so different. Most disasters began as whispers. Mia arrived for her shift one humid evening in mid-June. The sky over Norfolk was heavy and low, the air thick enough to taste. She parked in the employee lot and walked in with her badge swinging coffee in hand, hair pulled tight into a bun that would not come loose no matter how long the night lasted. At the nurse's station, the charge nurse looked up and gave her a tired half-smile. "You're floated to 7, she said. Mia blinked. 7's the step-down unit. The charge nurse lowered her voice. 7 has the Admiral. Mia had heard of him, of course. Everyone had. Not because staff gossiped about his medals, but because the room had become a quiet storm in the unit. A young woman losing weight with no diagnosis. A father with rank and resources who could not get an answer. Room 712, the charge nurse added. Be professional, be thorough, and do not take anything personal. He has been living in that chair. Mia nodded. Any special instructions? The charge nurse glanced down the hall. The family assistant is around a lot. Derek Shaw, he's helpful. Too helpful, some people say, but the Admiral trusts him. Let them have their space. Document everything. And if anything feels off, come to me first. Mia did not ask what off meant. She had learned that when people used that word, they meant a dozen things they could not name. She picked up the patient sheet, scanned Emma's stats, and felt her stomach sink at the weight trend. The numbers were not just low, they were dropping in a way that made her think of slow leaks of systems that bled out unseen. Mia washed her hands and walked down the hall. The floor was quieter than the emergency department, but the silence had its own pressure. Doors closed. Monitors beeped behind them. A man slept slumped in a chair outside another room, mouth open, the posture of someone who had surrendered to exhaustion. At room 712, the door was half closed. Light spilled through the narrow gap, soft but steady. Mia paused, reading the name on the chart holder, Emma Caldwell. Age 26. She inhaled once, then knocked lightly. A man's voice answered from inside. "Come in." Mia entered and saw Rear Admiral Robert Caldwell immediately. He was not in uniform, but he carried himself like he was. He sat upright in the chair beside the bed, elbows on the armrests, hands folded, as if he were waiting for someone to deliver a report. His eyes were bloodshot, his face drawn, but his posture refused weakness. Emma lay in the bed, hair pulled back, skin pale against the white sheets. The monitor above her traced neat green lines that did not match the fragility in her face. Mia stepped forward with practiced calm. "Good evening, Admiral Caldwell," she said. "I'm Mia Parker. I'll be your nurse tonight." Caldwell looked at her, a quick assessment that felt like it belonged in a briefing room. "How is she?" he asked. Mia did not glance at the monitor first. She looked at Emma. "She's resting," Mia said. "I'm going to check her lines and do a full assessment." Caldwell nodded once. Sharp, do it." Mia moved around the bed, checking the IV site, the tubing, the pump settings. She listened to Emma's lungs, felt her pulse, watched the subtle effort it took for Emma to swallow even in sleep. Caldwell watched every movement. "You've been here long?" he asked. Mia kept her voice even. 6 months at Tidewater Memorial. 3 years nursing before that. Caldwell's gaze flicked to her hands. "You look young." Mia met his eyes for a brief second, then returned to her work. "I'm experienced enough to be careful." Emma stirred, eyelids fluttering. For a moment her eyes opened unfocused. She saw Mia's face and frowned slightly as if trying to place her. "Hi," Mia said softly. "I'm Mia. I'm here tonight." Emma's mouth curved into something that might have been a smile on a stronger day. "Another one," she whispered. Mia felt the weight of that sentence, the exhaustion in it. "Yes," Mia said, "another one." Emma's eyes closed again. On the small table by the bed, a plastic bottle sat, half full, labeled with marker nutrition mix. Hydration. Mia reached toward it without thinking, the way she always checked what was within a patient's reach. She picked it up, noting the condensation on the outside, the cap screwed tight. She held it for a second, listening to the soft slosh inside. Caldwell's voice cut through quietly. "That's what she's supposed to drink," he said. "They keep trying different formulas." Mia nodded. "I'll note it." She set the bottle down carefully, exactly where it had been. Then she pulled the small notebook from her pocket, flipped to a clean page, and wrote the date and time with a steadiness that did not match the tension in the room. Mia clicked her pen closed and slid the notebook back into her pocket. The room hummed with quiet machinery, the kind of steady sound that calmed families who wanted to believe stability meant safety. Admiral Caldwell stared at the monitor as if his focus alone could turn it into an answer. "You think she is dehydrated," he said. Mia kept her voice neutral. "She is getting fluids. I want to confirm she is tolerating them." He gave a small nod that carried the weight of permission. Mia stepped to the sink, washed her hands again, then checked Emma's mouth and skin, the subtle signs that never showed up as numbers. Emma's lips were dry. Her collarbones looked too sharp against the gown. When Mia adjusted the blanket, Emma's body felt lighter than it should. Caldwell watched the motion. "They told me her organs are fine." Mia glanced at Emma's face. "Sometimes the organs are fine until they are not." Caldwell's eyes tightened. "You are careful with your words." Mia met his gaze for a heartbeat. "I am careful with your daughter." She moved to the bedside table again and lifted the bottle with both hands this time, like it mattered. The label was handwritten. Nutrition mix date and time initials she did not recognize. The cap was screwed on. The liquid inside was pale, cloudy, like any hospital blend. Mia did not open it yet. She turned it, searching for the faintest irregularity. A sticky ring around the neck, as if something had dried there. She set it down and looked towards the pump. The tubing ran clean. The rate looked ordinary. Nothing screamed. But her throat held that faint memory of bitterness from earlier in the shift, like a warning your body gives before your mind catches up. A nurse stepped in to help with a routine lab draw. Mia recognized her from orientation, older, confident, a woman who had learned how to move fast without looking rushed. "How is our celebrity patient?" the nurse asked, half joking. Caldwell did not look away from Emma. Mia answered quietly, "She is tired." The other nurse glanced at the chart. "Same story. Labs look fine, weight looks awful." She said it like weather. Nothing anyone could change. Mia watched her draw blood with practiced skill, label the tubes, and leave. Caldwell kept his eyes on Emma's hand as if he could will it to stop looking fragile. When the door shut, Mia heard the latch settle soft, final. The hallway noise dimmed again. Emma shifted eyelids, fluttering. She opened her eyes just enough to look at her father. "Dad," she whispered. Caldwell leaned in instantly. "I am here." Emma's voice carried a thin irritation that sounded like her old self trying to return. "You are always here." His mouth twitched almost a smile, then failed. "That is the point." Emma turned her eyes toward Mia, still half asleep. "Is it morning yet?" Mia softened her tone. "Not yet. Try to rest." Emma's gaze lingered on Mia's face as if she were judging whether Mia was real or another blur in a long line of strangers. "You are new," Emma said. "Yes," Mia replied, "but I pay attention." Emma closed her eyes again, the effort of speaking costing her more than it should. Caldwell sat back, hands clasped, jaw locked. Mia finished the charting at the bedside computer, then stepped out to the nurse's station. The unit felt cooler there, the air moving the lights brighter. She checked the time. 1:37. She flipped open her pocket notebook and wrote a single line, small and precise. "Bottle at bedside. Unusual residue at neck. Confirm preparation chain." Then she wrote another, more personal something she rarely admitted even to herself. "Patient looks worse than monitor suggests." At 1:47 the sound came. A soft click from the door sensor, the kind most people stopped hearing after a week on the floor. Mia's head lifted. She watched the door, felt her own body go still. A moment later, the door eased open, quiet, as a practiced hand could make it. A figure slipped out, tall, careful, moving, like he belonged. Derek Shaw. He paused in the hallway, adjusted the strap of a bag on his shoulder, nodded to a passing staff member, then walked toward the elevators without hurry. Mia looked down at the clock again. Visiting hours had ended at 9. She turned her head and watched Caldwell through the glass panel of room 712. He sat in the same position, still and vigilant, unaware that someone had just left his daughter's room. Mia pulled the unit log on the computer. She searched the visitor record. Derek Shaw recorded entry 132, recorded exit 147. Mia's fingers hovered over the keyboard. It was not illegal to visit. It was not proof of anything. It was just a fact. But facts were how you built truth. She went back into the room to check on Emma. Caldwell looked up. Was that him, he asked, as if he had heard the click too. Mia kept her face calm. Mr. Shaw was here. Caldwell nodded once. He checks on her. He has been doing it every night. Every night, Mia repeated lightly. He is family, Caldwell said, and the words landed with finality. He has earned his place. Mia did not argue. She checked Emma's vitals, then watched the monitor for a full minute. The rhythm was steady. The numbers held. 15 minutes later, the first change appeared. Emma's heart rate climbed subtle at first, then faster. Her breathing shifted shallow, uneven. Her forehead dampened as if her body had suddenly remembered fear. Mia leaned in. Emma, can you hear me? Emma's eyelids fluttered. Her hand twitched under the sheet. The monitor beeped louder, not because the machine had emotion, but because it had thresholds. Caldwell stood so fast the chair scraped. What is happening? Mia raised her hand slightly, a calm signal. I am here. I am assessing. Emma's blood pressure crept upward. Not dramatic, not a crash. A climb that made no sense for a woman lying still. Her pulse thudded under Mia's fingers, quick and light like a trapped bird. Mia pressed the call button. Another nurse entered, then a respiratory therapist. They moved around Emma and practiced choreography. Oxygen. Recheck. Listen, watch. A resident arrived, hair rumpled, eyes half awake. He scanned the monitor, then Emma's face. "She is anxious," he said. Caldwell's voice sharpened. "She is asleep." The resident hesitated. Sometimes the body reacts to stress even in sleep. Mia heard the familiar drift toward an easy explanation, a story that fit the clean labs. She kept her focus on Emma. "Any pain?" Mia asked softly. Emma's eyes opened unfocused. "My stomach," she whispered. "It burns." Mia felt Caldwell's stare on her heavy searching. The episode lasted just under an hour. Then the numbers eased. Emma's breathing steadied, her skin cooled. The monitor returned to its calm line as if nothing had happened. The resident left with a shrug disguised as professionalism. "We will keep watching," he said. Mia watched him go. Caldwell sat back down slowly as if his body had aged 10 years in 60 minutes. "That happens," he said to Mia, voice tight. "Every night. They keep telling me it is nothing." Mia looked at the bedside table at the bottle with the handwritten label. "What time does Mr. Shaw usually come?" Mia asked. Caldwell blinked, caught off guard by the directness. "Late, after he finishes the house. Usually around 1:30. Mia nodded, as if she were confirming something she already knew. She did not sleep the next day. On her break at dawn, she sat in her car in the employee lot with her notebook open on her lap. She replayed the night in her head like a training video. Derek's entry time, his exit time, the episode window, the bitter smell she could not place, the residue around the bottleneck. It could still be coincidence. It could still be stress. It could be an interaction, a supplement ingredient Emma could not tolerate. But the timing had edges too clean to ignore. That night, Mia returned to room 712 with the same calm smile and the same careful hands. Caldwell greeted her with a nod that felt less like courtesy and more like relief. "You again?" he said. "Yes, sir," Mia replied. Emma was awake, propped on pillows. Her eyes looked larger in her thin face. She tried to offer a smile. "Are you the one who said you pay attention?" she asked. Mia checked her wristband. "That is me." Emma's voice turned wry. "Good. Maybe you can pay attention to the part where I am starving to death while everyone tells me I am fine." Caldwell's jaw tightened. Mia kept her expression steady. "I hear you," Mia said. Emma's eyes filled quickly, then she looked away like she hated that weakness more than the sickness. "I used to run," Emma whispered. "I used to eat like a normal person. Now I cannot finish half a bowl of soup. And it is like my body forgets what food is." Mia watched her swallow. Watched the effort it took. "When did it start?" Mia asked. Emma glanced at her father, then back at Mia. "After the acceptance letter." Caldwell lifted his head. "Do not connect those." Emma's voice sharpened a flash of frustration. "I am not saying it is stress. I am saying that is when my life was supposed to start." Mia wrote down the phrase in her mind. "After the acceptance letter." Not because she believed in superstition, but because timing mattered. Later, when Derek arrived, Mia watched him with her eyes, not her assumptions. He entered with a soft knock, carrying a small tote bag that looked like it held personal supplies. He smiled at Emma like a man who cared. "How is our girl?" Derek asked. Emma attempted brightness, still tiny, still annoying. Derek chuckled softly. "You are not annoying, you are stubborn. That is different." He turned to Caldwell. "I spoke to the insurance representative. They approved the additional consults." Caldwell exhaled, gratitude flickering. "Good work." Derek placed a bottle on the table. "Fresh mix," he said, like a simple gift. "They said she needs more electrolytes." Mia stepped closer. "Did pharmacy prepare it?" Derek looked at her polite surprise. "Nutrition station. I picked it up." Mia nodded as if satisfied. "Thank you." Derek's eyes flicked to Mia's badge. "Nurse Parker," he said. "Appreciate you taking care of her." "It is my job," Mia replied. Derek smiled. I know, still, thank you. He stayed 12 minutes, adjusted Emma's pillow, smoothed the blanket, asked her to sip from the bottle. Emma lifted it with shaking hands and took 2 small swallows. Mia watched Derek's hands. They were steady, clean nails, no tremor. The hands of someone who had practiced calm. When Derek left, Mia checked the time. 1:47. The door sensor clicked. 15 minutes later, Emma's heart rate began to climb again. Mia did not call it coincidence anymore, not in her notebook, not in her mind. Over the next week, she built a timeline so tight it felt like a military schedule. She recorded times with the precision of a watch officer. Derek entry, Derek exit, Emma episode onset, episode end, bottle source, bottle placement, any staff changes, any unusual smells. She tried once to raise it with a day nurse carefully without accusation. It is strange, Mia said quietly at shift change. The episodes follow a pattern. The day nurse glanced at the chart and shrugged. The assistant visits at night. She gets anxious at night. Night is when the mind plays tricks. Mia did not argue. She watched the nurse walk away and she felt the familiar wall of dismissal built from fatigue and routine. On her 3rd night of collecting data, Mia stood outside the security office door with her notebook in her hand. She hesitated, not because she doubted what she saw, but because she knew what the accusation could become if she was wrong. She knocked anyway. Hank Dwyer looked up from a bank of screens. His face was lined with the kind of exhaustion that came from years of seeing people at their worst. Gray stubble shadowed his jaw. A coffee cup sat near his keyboard untouched cold. You lost Hank, said. Mia stepped inside. I might be, she replied. But I have a problem. Hank gestured to the chair. Talk. Mia sat and slid her notebook across the desk. Hank picked it up with 2 fingers like it might be a complaint he did not want. Then he read. His eyes moved line by line. Times, notes, small details. No drama, no adjectives, just facts. When he finished, he set the notebook down and looked at her. You are saying the family assistant is causing it, he said. Mia's chest tightened. I am saying the timing follows him. I am saying the bottle smells wrong. I am saying the numbers change after he leaves. Hank stared at her for a long moment. The monitors reflected in his eyes. You have proof, he asked. I have a pattern, Mia replied. I want to know if you see it too. Hank leaned back slowly. He did not laugh. He did not dismiss her. He turned his chair toward the camera feeds. Room 712, he said. He pulled up the archived footage. The angle showed the hallway outside Emma's room. Hank rewound to the previous night. Derek Shaw appeared on screen at 1:32, walking down the hall with his tote bag. He paused, knocked, entered. The door closed. At 1:47, the door opened. Derek stepped out, adjusted the tote strap, walked away. Hank rewound again and played it a second time. He did not speak for a while. Then he opened another window and pulled up the visitor log. His name is on the approved list, Hank said. He is checked in every time. Mia nodded. Which means no one looks twice. Hank's mouth tightened. How often does he come? Mia answered without glancing at her notes. Every night. Same window. Hank looked at her like he was deciding how much trouble he wanted to invite into his life. I do not like accusing family, Hank said. And I do not like accusing an admiral's family. But I like a patient dying with no explanation even less. Mia felt her throat loosen slightly. Can you give me more footage, she asked. Hank's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then he nodded. 2 weeks, he said. That is what we keep easy access to. He copied the files to a secure drive and handed it to her. If you take this, he said, you handle it clean. You do not gossip. You do not confront. You bring facts. Mia gripped the drive. Yes, sir. Hank studied her face, then added, and if you are wrong, we will be wrong together. But we will be wrong carefully. Mia went home after her shift, pulled her curtains shut, and watched the hallway footage on her laptop in her kitchen. Frame by frame, night after night. Derek's visits were steady as a metronome. The timing did not drift. The pattern did not break. She cross-referenced the times with Emma's charted episodes. The vitals spikes the notes about nausea and burning pain. The overlap was too clean to ignore. The next step was harder. Video of a hallway proved presence, not harm. She needed the bottle tested, not with a standard panel, but with the kind of scrutiny reserved for things people did not like to say out loud. On her next shift, Mia carried the half-used bottle from Emma's room to the pharmacy window and kept her voice casual. "I need an analysis," she said, "just to confirm the mix is correct." The pharmacist glanced at the bottle. "We can run the standard check." Mia nodded. "Please do." The results came back within normal limits. The pharmacist slid the paper toward her with a look that suggested the conversation was over. Mia read it once, then looked up. "I need an expanded screen." The pharmacist's eyebrows lifted. "For what?" Mia kept her tone steady. "For anything not supposed to be in there." The pharmacist paused. "That is not routine." Mia did not raise her voice. She did not plead. She simply held the pharmacist's gaze the way a patient advocate held a line. "It is not routine for a healthy woman to lose this much weight with normal tests either," Mia said. "I need to rule out contamination." The pharmacist studied her for a moment, then reached for a form. "It will take a few days," he said. "Thank you," Mia replied. She walked back to the unit with the quiet sensation of stepping onto thin ice. Every action felt loud, even when it was silent. That night, Derek arrived as usual. Mia watched him enter, watched him leave, watched Emma's body react on schedule. She treated the episode the same way she always did because Emma still mattered more than the mystery. 2 days later, Hank called Mia to the security office before her shift started. He did not waste words. "Pharmacy called," he said. Mia's pulse quickened. What did they find? Hank slid a paper across the desk. "Trace presence of something that does not belong in an electrolyte mix," he said. "They will not name it in a casual report. They said it clears fast." Mia read the report slowly. The language was clinical and careful, the kind that avoided lawsuits. It confirmed enough to change the air in the room. Mia looked up. "So the labs look normal because the blood draws happen after it is gone." Hank nodded once. "That is what the toxicologist told pharmacy." Mia felt a cold, focused anger settle in her chest. Not wild, not emotional, the kind of anger that sharpened your vision. "This is not an accident," Mia said. Hank's eyes were tired but steady. "No." Mia stared at the report again, then at the hallway footage frozen on Hank's screen. Derek Shaw, mid-step tote bag on shoulder, moving like a man who belonged. Hank spoke quietly. "You said he's always there, with the Admiral too." Mia nodded. "He is trusted." Hank leaned forward. "Trusted people hurt patients all the time," he said. "Usually without meaning to. Sometimes with meaning. Either way, we need proof that holds." Mia's fingers tightened on the edge of the paper. "We cannot tell the Admiral without certainty," she said. Hank's voice lowered. "We cannot wait either." Mia looked at the clock on Hank's wall. The hands moved like nothing in the world had changed. "I want to watch the room," she said. Hank's gaze sharpened. "That is restricted." Mia kept her tone calm. "I want to document what happens when he is alone with her. I want to confirm the bottle chain." Hank was quiet for a long moment. Then he opened a drawer and pulled out a small equipment request form. "We can monitor for patient safety," he said, choosing his words carefully. "We can do it inside our rules. If we do it clean." Mia felt her lungs fill fully for the first time in days. "Yes," she said, "clean." Hank picked up his pen. "Tell me where he reaches," he said. Mia pictured Derek's hands the bottle, the bedside table, the way he moved without looking, because the room was familiar. "The table," Mia said. "Always the table first." Hank wrote a note. "Then we place eyes on the table," he said. Mia nodded. "And we keep Emma safe." Hank capped his pen. "Go back to the floor," he said. "Act normal. Document everything. Do not change your face when he walks in." Mia stood. The report felt heavy in her pocket, heavier than any shift assignment. When she returned to room 712, Admiral Caldwell looked up from the chair. His eyes searched her face like he was reading a battlefield. "How was your day?" He asked the question, almost human. Mia kept her voice steady. "Busy," she said, "but I am here." Caldwell watched her for a long second, then nodded, as if she had passed a test he had not told her about. Emma slept her breathing quiet. Mia checked the bedside table. The bottle sat where it always sat. She adjusted the blanket, smoothed the sheet, and wrote a new line in her notebook. Expanded screen positive. Timing matters. Then she closed the notebook and stood by the bed, listening to the soft beep of the monitor and the quieter sound of a door sensor down the hall, waiting for the night to move the way it always moved. The night did what Norfolk nights always did when the air got too heavy to hold itself. It gathered in layers. Heat. Salt. A distant engine droned from the base. Then the first low rumble of thunder rolled across the river like a warning shot. Mia kept her face neutral as she moved through her routine in room 712. She checked Emma's IV site, verified the pump settings, listened to her lungs again, and wrote the same calm notes she always wrote. Admiral Caldwell sat in his chair, eyes open, posture locked, as if sleep were a luxury he refused on principle. Any changes he asked. Mia smoothed the sheet at Emma's shoulder. "Not right now." Caldwell watched her hands. "You look like you are waiting for something." Mia did not pause. "I am watching," she said. He nodded, once the smallest motion, and stared back at the monitor. Mia left the room and walked to the security office without rushing. The hallway lights were dimmer at night, but the hospital never truly slept. A medication cart squeaked in the distance. A call bell chimed and then stopped. Someone laughed softly in the break room, the kind of tired laugh that came from people who had learned to joke because the alternative was breaking. Hank Dwyer was already at his desk. He had cleared space beside the keyboard and laid out a small camera no bigger than a matchbox. Its lens looked like a black eye. "That is it," Mia said. Hank nodded. "Hospital equipment, approved for security monitoring. We do it by policy." Mia leaned closer. "Where's it going?" Hank slid a laminated floor plan toward her finger, tapping the outline of room 712. "We keep it on the bedside table zone," he said. "We do not point it at her face. We do not record what we do not need." Mia studied the plan. "He reaches for the bottle first," she said. Hank's gaze held steady. "Then we give the camera a clear view of the bottle." Mia's throat tightened. "If he sees it." "He will not," Hank said, voice flat. "Not if it looks like it has been there forever." He opened a drawer and pulled out a faded bouquet wrapper, the kind the gift shop used. "That flower arrangement in her room," he asked, "the one that has been sitting on the windowsill since before you got assigned there." Mia pictured it. Wilted lilies, a dusty ribbon. Hank slid the wrapper toward her. "We tuck it behind that. Lens at the table line. No movement once it is set." Mia stared at the camera, then at Hank. "You are sure this stays inside policy?" Hank's eyes did not blink. "Patient safety. Security oversight. Authorized personnel only." "You are authorized." Mia nodded. "When?" Hank looked at the clock. "Before he arrives. You have an hour." Mia took the camera like it was fragile, then walked back up to the unit with her pulse controlled and her thoughts loud. She stepped into room 712 with the same calm as always. Admiral Caldwell looked up, then back at Emma. Mia kept her voice professional. "I need to adjust something by the window," she said. Caldwell's eyes followed her sharp. "What?" Mia lifted the flower arrangement gently. "This is blocking the air vent. I want to make sure the room stays cool." It was not a lie. The vent was blocked. It just was not the only reason. Caldwell grunted once permission granted. Mia turned her body between the table and Caldwell's view, shielding the movement with the bouquet. Her fingers worked quickly, silently placing the camera behind the thickest part of the flowers, angling the lens so it faced the bedside table and the bottle. She held her breath as she adjusted the angle. Emma slept on unaware. Mia stepped back and forced her shoulders to loosen. Better, she said, like she had done something trivial. Caldwell watched her walk away. "You are careful," he said again. Mia did not look at him. "I have to be." At the nurse's station, she charted like nothing was different. The storm outside deepened. Rain started to tick against the windows, then turned into a steady hammering sound that filled the building's hollow spaces. Thunder rolled again, louder. At 10:30, a maintenance alert crackled over a radio near the station. Something about flickering lights in the east wing. Mia's stomach tightened. Storms did not just bring rain. They brought gaps. They brought confusion. They brought the kind of cover that made bad decisions easier. She checked her phone. A message from Hank appeared. "Camera is live. Feed is clean." Mia exhaled slowly, then forced herself to drink water. Her mouth was dry, a symptom of adrenaline she refused to name. At 11:45, she walked past room 712 and glanced through the glass. Caldwell sat in the chair, eyes fixed on Emma. The man looked like he had not blinked all night. Mia stepped inside and checked Emma's vitals. Stable, quiet, calm. Caldwell's voice was low. "He will come soon." Mia kept her hand steady. "I know." The door sensor clicked at 1:32. Mia did not look up like it mattered. She continued charting at the bedside computer as Derek Shaw entered with a soft knock. His tote bag hung from one shoulder. He wore a simple collared shirt sleeves rolled neatly like a man who knew how to look useful without looking threatening. "Evening," Derek said. Caldwell finally turned his head. "You are late." Derek's smile was apologetic. The storm backed up traffic. I did not want to wake her. Emma's eyelids fluttered, then opened slightly. She managed a thin smile. "You always come when it is awful outside," she whispered. Derek stepped closer, voice warm. "I come when you are here." He adjusted Emma's blanket with careful hands and brushed hair back from her forehead. He looked at her the way a parent might, tender and focused. Then his eyes flicked to the bedside table. Mia kept her gaze down, but she saw the motion. Derek lifted the bottle, gave it a small shake, and held it to Emma's lips. "Just a sip," he said, "for me." Emma's hand rose weakly and steadied the bottle. She drank. 2 small swallows, then she turned her face away like her stomach had already decided. Derek lowered the bottle and set it down again with precision. Mia watched still and quiet while her brain recorded everything. Derek turned to Caldwell. "I rescheduled the base housing contractor. He will come next week." Caldwell nodded, distracted. "Fine." Derek's tone softened. "She will be okay, sir." Caldwell's voice stayed flat. "Do not say that unless you know it." Derek did not flinch. He placed a hand on the back of Caldwell's chair for a brief moment, a gesture that could have been comfort or possession. Then he stepped away. "I will just check her things," Derek said. "Make sure she has what she needs." Mia's chest tightened. Derek moved around the bed, blocking Mia's view of the table for a moment. His body shielded his hands. Caldwell watched Emma, not Derek. Mia kept her face calm, but her fingers pressed lightly against the edge of the keyboard, anchoring herself. Derek stepped aside. The bottle sat where it always sat. Nothing looked different. Derek asked Emma a quiet question about pain. Emma mumbled something. Derek nodded as if he understood. He checked his watch. "I will go," he said. "Try to sleep." Emma's eyes closed again. "You too," she whispered words, slurring with fatigue. Derek leaned down. His mouth moved near Emma's ear as if he were saying something private. The camera would not catch sound, but Mia saw the motion. Then Derek straightened, nodded to Mia with polite professionalism, and walked out. The door sensor clicked. 1:47. Mia's phone vibrated in her pocket. Hank's message appeared. He touched the bottle. Mia's throat constricted. She did not look toward Caldwell. She did not change her breathing. She walked to the bedside table and gently moved the bottle farther from Emma's reach. Caldwell's head snapped toward her. "What are you doing?" Mia kept her voice calm. "I am switching her to a fresh mix," she said. "This one has been sitting." Caldwell's eyes narrowed. "She barely drinks it anyway." Mia held the bottle like it mattered. "We still keep it clean." Caldwell stared at her for a long moment, then looked back at Emma. "Do what you have to." Mia carried the bottle out of the room as if it were routine and handed it to a co-worker without explanation. "Put this in the medroom fridge," she said quietly. "Do not let anyone touch it." The co-worker blinked, surprised by Mia's tone, then nodded. Mia walked back into room 712 and stood by Emma's bed. 10 minutes pass. 15. Emma's heart rate began to climb. It started as a subtle shift, like a tide turning. Then it became visible numbers rising with no reason. Emma's breathing shallowed. Her forehead dampened. Her lips parted as if her body could not find air fast enough. Caldwell stood. "No, not again." Mia pressed her hand gently to Emma's shoulder. "Emma, look at me." Emma's eyes fluttered open, unfocused panic sliding in behind them. "It burns," she whispered. Mia kept her voice low. "I am right here." Caldwell's hands clenched. "Fix it." Mia called for help with the same steady tone she always used. "Respiratory, charge nurse, provider." But the biggest change was not the response. The biggest change was what Mia did not do. She did not reach for the bottle. She did not let anyone offer it. She did not let the line run without scrutiny. She checked the pump settings again, eyes scanning the numbers like she was reading a code. And she waited, watching whether the episode would follow its usual script. It did. The spike came and held, then eased. Not because anyone found a diagnosis, but because time did what time always did. Caldwell sank back into the chair with a visible tremor in his jaw. "They told me she is stable," he said, voice raw. "They told me this does not mean anything." Mia looked at him careful. "It means something," she said quietly. Caldwell's eyes snapped up. "Then say it." Mia did not answer. Not yet. She could not. Not without the full chain in place, not with his daughter lying there, not with Derek still in the building. Her phone vibrated again. "Call me, now." "Hank." Mia turned to the charge nurse. "I need 2 minutes," she said. "Do not leave her alone." The charge nurse nodded, sensing the seriousness without understanding it. Mia walked fast, but not running down the hallway past the nurse's station toward the stairwell. The storm's rain hammered the windows. Lightning flashed in the distance, bright enough to make the hall lights seem dim. She reached the stairwell door and pushed it open. The air inside was cooler damp with concrete and old mop water. She answered Hank's call. Hank's voice was low and sharp. "We have him." Mia's heart pounded. "You saw it." "I saw enough," Hank said. He handled the bottle. His hand came out of his pocket. He blocked the view for a second. He did something to it. Then he went to the pump. Mia swallowed. "Police." "Called," Hank said. "They are on their way." But Mia listened to me. He left the room, then doubled back in the hallway. "He is not going home." Mia's skin went cold. "Why?" Hank's answer came quick. "Because he knows when patterns change. And you changed something. You moved the bottle. You have been watching him. He will feel it." Mia's breath caught. "Where is he now?" "Not on camera," Hank said. The storm knocked out 2 hallway feeds on 7 for 3 minutes. It is back now, but he is not in the frame. Mia's hand tightened around her phone. "He is in the building." "Yes," Hank said. "Stay with staff. Do not be alone." Mia looked at the stairwell landing above her. The concrete steps rose into shadow. The storm's thunder filled the space like distant artillery. She spoke carefully. "I am in the stairwell." Hank's voice hardened. "Get out of there." Before Mia could answer, a sound echoed from above. Footsteps. Fast. Controlled. Not the heavy pace of a nurse responding to an alarm. Not the drag of a tired family member. Purposeful. Mia's mouth went dry. She lowered her phone slightly and whispered, "He is here." Hank swore under his breath. "Mia, move. Go back to the unit." Mia's eyes scanned the stairwell. The door behind her was closed, but if she pushed it open now, the noise would announce her. The footsteps were descending. The storm muffled everything else. She stepped back into the shadow near the maintenance cart that had been sitting in the corner for weeks. Dust coated its metal frame. A faded caution sign hung from it by a string. Mia forced her breathing slow. She held her phone at her side camera app, open screen dimmed. The footsteps stopped on the landing above. A man's silhouette appeared through the bars of the railing. Derek Shaw. His eyes swept the stairwell, then locked onto Mia. For a moment, neither of them moved. The rain rattled the small window and lightning flared, bleaching his face white for a split second before darkness returned. Derek's voice was calm, almost conversational. "Nurse Parker." Mia kept her voice steady, though her pulse hammered. "Mr. Shaw." He took one step down. "You are off the unit." Mia did not answer directly. "Is Emma okay?" Derek's mouth twitched a smile that did not reach his eyes. "You tell me. You are the one who moved things." Mia's spine tightened. "You noticed." Derek's gaze dropped to her hand, then back to her face. "I notice everything he said." Mia's eyes flicked to the maintenance cart. The black duffel bag behind it was half hidden, pressed into the corner like someone had hoped no one would ever look there. Her instincts, the same instincts that had pulled her toward the bottle, pulled her toward the bag. Derek followed her glance, and his expression changed just slightly. Not panic, recognition. Mia shifted her weight as if she were just trying to get comfortable, then crouched, one hand steadying herself on the cart, the other reaching behind it. Her fingers brushed fabric. "The bag." Derek's voice sharpened. "Do not touch that." Mia's throat tightened, but her hands did not stop. She dragged the bag forward and pulled the zipper. The sound cut through the stairwell, loud and final. Inside were sealed packets that had been opened and resealed with careful hands. Small vials, clear liquid catching the phone's light. Medical supplies still in sterile wrap. Measuring tools. A notebook thick with dates and times written in neat, disciplined handwriting. Mia lifted the notebook and flipped it open. The entries were structured like a schedule, a log. Too precise to be innocent. Mia raised her phone and began recording. Derek's face went still, then crumpled as if something inside him had finally snapped. His shoulders sagged, his eyes glistened. "I told you not to touch that," he said, but the authority was gone from his voice. Mia's words came out low and controlled. "Why?" Derek swallowed, staring at the open bag as if it were a wound. "He saved me," he whispered. Mia's jaw clenched. "You hurt her." Derek's breath shuddered. "I did not want to," he said, voice breaking. "I needed him to stay. I needed this to stay." Mia kept her phone steady. "You did this to keep your place." Derek's eyes squeezed shut. He sank onto the step, back against the wall, hands covering his face like he was trying to hide from what he had become. "I could not go back," he said, the words muffled. "Not to nothing, not again." Mia did not step closer. She stayed by the bag phone, recording the smell of rain and concrete and something faintly bitter in the air. The new sounds rose from below. Boots, radio chatter, a heavy door opening, Hank's voice calling out Mia. 2 police officers entered the stairwell with Hank behind them. Their flashlights swept the space, then locked onto Derek on the step, then the open duffel bag, then Mia's phone held steady like a witness. One officer spoke. "Sir, stand up." Derek did not fight. He rose slowly, eyes-red hands lifting without being asked. Mia watched the cuffs close around his wrists. The metal click was sharp in the stairwell. Hank stepped toward Mia, his voice low. "Are you hurt?" Mia shook her head once. "No." Hank's gaze flicked to the bag. "Good," he said, and his jaw tightened. "We secure this." The officers guided Derek down the stairs. Derek looked back once, not with anger, not with hatred, with something worse. Regret so heavy it made his face look older. Mia's lungs finally pulled a full breath, but it did not feel like relief. It felt like shock. Hank put a hand lightly on her shoulder, steadying but not soft. "Come on," he said. "We have to protect the patient." Mia nodded and followed him out of the stairwell into the corridor, the hospital lights too bright after the concrete darkness. The unit's hum returned, monitors beeping, wheels, rolling, voices low and controlled. Room 712 waited at the end of the hall with its door half closed, as if nothing inside it had changed. Mia walked faster. She pushed the door open and saw Admiral Caldwell still in the chair, eyes fixed on Emma, posture rigid, as if he could hold the night in place by sheer will. He looked up at Mia, his stare sharp. "Where were you?" Mia crossed to the bedside, checked Emma's breathing, checked the line, checked the pump hands moving with practiced precision. Then she turned her face toward Caldwell, careful with every word. "Sir," she said quietly, "I need you to step into the hallway for a moment." Caldwell's eyes narrowed. Mia held his gaze. "Because we need to change how we keep her safe." Caldwell rose slow and controlled, like a man standing up in a briefing room. He looked down at Emma once, then stepped toward the door. Mia stayed at the bedside, one hand resting lightly on the bed rail, listening to Emma's steady breaths and the distant rumble of the storm as the night began to thin toward morning. Caldwell stepped into the hallway and stopped just outside the door, close enough that he could still see Emma through the narrow glass panel. His hands rested at his sides, but his shoulders stayed squared as if he were bracing against impact. Mia closed the door behind her with a gentle click. The corridor smelled of disinfectant and damp air carried in from the storm. A nurse down the hall pushed a cart past them without slowing, eyes forward, trained not to stare. Caldwell's voice was low. "Explain." Mia chose her words the way she chose medications. Exact dose, exact timing. "Your daughter's episodes follow a schedule," she said. "We have evidence that something has been added to her nutrition mix." The Admiral's face did not change at first. Not anger, not confusion. Just stillness, the kind that came right before an order. "Evidence," he repeated. Hank Dwyer appeared at the far end of the hall with two officers. Their radios crackled softly, volume kept down out of habit. Hank walked with the quiet authority of a man who had already made the call and would not apologize for it. He stopped a few feet away from Caldwell and spoke like he was delivering a report to a superior. Rear Admiral Caldwell Hank said, "We detained Derek Shaw. We recovered items consistent with tampering. We have video corroboration inside hospital policy." Caldwell's eyes snapped to Hank, then to the officers, then back to Mia. The world behind his gaze seemed to reorder itself into targets and routes and threats. No, he said a single word flat with disbelief. Mia kept her voice steady. "Sir, please stay in the hall." Caldwell's jaw tightened. That man is family. Hank's voice did not rise. "He is in custody." Caldwell stared at Hank like he was daring him to be wrong. "You are telling me my daughter is being harmed in this hospital?" Hank did not flinch. "I am telling you we stopped it." Caldwell's breathing changed, controlled but heavier. He looked through the glass at Emma's sleeping face turned slightly to the side. His hand lifted toward the door handle reflex, and Mia stepped closer without blocking him, but reminding him she was there. Sir, Mia said quietly, "We need to keep her environment controlled. No outside food, no outside supplements. Security on the door. Pharmacy, sealed supplies only. We keep a clear chain." Caldwell's voice came out rough. "How long?" Mia's throat tightened. She answered anyway. "Based on the log and the recovered notes, weeks," she said. "Possibly months." Caldwell turned his head slowly toward Hank. The muscles around his eyes drew tight, then tighter, until it looked like the skin itself might tear. "You let him visit after hours," Caldwell said. Hank's tone stayed careful. He was approved. "You authorized it. He signed in every time." The Admiral's mouth opened, as if to speak, then closed. He looked suddenly older, the storm in his face not the loud kind, but the kind that collapsed inward. One of the officers cleared his throat, softly respectful. "Sir, we need to take your statement at some point." Caldwell did not look at him. Not now. The officer nodded once, understood. Hank glanced at Mia. "We need to secure the items," he said. Mia nodded. "And her room." Hank turned to the officers. "One stays on this floor." Quiet, keep distance from the room, no scene. They moved off, radio's low footsteps measured. Caldwell finally spoke, voice quieter than Mia expected. "Show me." Hank's eyes sharpened. "Sir, you do not want to see it." Caldwell's stare did not waver. "I said, show me." Hank hesitated for a fraction of a second, then pulled a tablet from his pocket. He did not angle it toward the door. He angled it toward the wall away from Emma and held it out with both hands. Mia watched Caldwell's face as the screen reflected light into his eyes. He watched without blinking. On the grainy security feed, Derek's hand slipped from his pocket. The bottle lifted. The brief second where his body blocked the camera. The bottle set back down. The slight movement at the pump. No words, no dramatic gesture, just routine which made it worse. Caldwell's throat moved as he swallowed. When the clip ended, Caldwell did not hand the tablet back right away. His fingers tightened around the edges. His breathing became shallow, controlled, like he was trying to keep something from exploding out of him. Hank waited. Mia waited. Finally, Caldwell extended the tablet back to Hank with a motion that looked careful, almost gentle. "I want him out of my life," Caldwell said. Hank nodded once. "He is." Caldwell's eyes flicked to the door again. "And my daughter," Mia answered softly. "We are doing everything to protect her." Caldwell's jaw worked. "Call her doctor. Wake whoever you have to wake." Mia nodded. "Yes, sir." Caldwell stood in the hallway like a sentry while Mia stepped back into room 712. The room smelled the same. The monitor beeped the same. Emma's chest rose and fell like nothing had happened. Mia moved quickly and quietly. She removed every bottle from the bedside table, placed them into a sealed bag, labeled it, and handed it to Hank through the cracked door. She checked the pump again, verified settings, and put a bright tamper seal on the access points the way they did with controlled medication deliveries. A charge nurse came in, eyes sharp with concern. "What is going on?" Mia kept her voice low. "Security situation. Patient safety. We need a controlled environment." The charge nurse looked at Caldwell through the window, then back at Mia. She did not ask again. "Understood," she said. The doctor on call arrived 10 minutes later, a hospitalist with tired eyes and a clipped voice. He listened while Mia spoke in facts, not theories. Hank backed her with security documentation. The doctor's face shifted from skepticism to something closer to shock. "We will order a full toxicology panel," he said. Mia kept her tone calm. "Time the draw appropriately. The compound clears fast." The doctor blinked once, then nodded. "We will coordinate with toxicology." Caldwell stepped into the room when Mia allowed it, his gaze scanning every corner as if he expected an enemy to be hiding behind the curtains. "Sir," the doctor began, careful. "We suspect she has been exposed to an external agent." Caldwell's voice was flat. "Suspect." Mia looked at him. "We have evidence," she said. "We are confirming medically." Caldwell nodded once, stiff. He pulled the chair closer to the bed and sat down. His hand hovered near Emma's, then settled gently on the blanket over her wrist like he was afraid touch might break her. For the rest of the night, no one else entered room 712 except staff. Security stood at the end of the hall, distant but present. The door sensor clicked only when a nurse came or went. The hallway stayed quiet. When dawn finally bled through the rain clouds, the storm eased into a steady drizzle. Norfolk's morning traffic began to hiss along wet roads. A hospital cafeteria worker wheeled in breakfast trays, the smell of toast and coffee cutting through antiseptic air. Mia checked Emma's vitals again. Stable. Not miracle stable. Not perfect. But stable without the sharp spike that had become routine. Caldwell noticed the difference before anyone said it out loud. He leaned forward, eyes fixed on the monitor, then turned to Mia. "Is it happening?" he asked. Mia kept her voice steady. "Not yet." Caldwell stared at Emma's face. His voice dropped. "It always happens." Mia met his gaze. "Not last night." The Admiral's mouth parted slightly as if he did not know how to accept that simple statement. He looked back at Emma, and Mia watched a new emotion take shape behind his rigid control. Not relief. Not yet. Hope cautious and terrified. The first day passed with an uneasy quiet. Doctors came, spoke softly, wrote orders, left. Nurses rotated in and out respectful of the room's gravity. Caldwell did not leave. He did not eat until Mia placed a wrapped sandwich on the side table and said firmly, "You need calories too." He stared at it like it was an insult, then ate, because her voice carried authority without rank. Emma woke in the afternoon, eyes clearer than Mia had seen them. She blinked slowly, staring at the ceiling, then turned her head. Her gaze landed on Caldwell. "Dad," she whispered. He leaned in immediately. "I am here." Emma's eyes shifted to Mia. She studied Mia as if trying to decide whether she was real. "You are still my night nurse," Emma said. Mia nodded. "Yes." Emma swallowed. "I feel different." Caldwell's breath caught. "Better." Emma frowned, searching her body's signals. Not better, just not burning. Mia's throat tightened. She kept her voice controlled. "We adjusted your intake," she said. "We are monitoring closely." Emma's eyes narrowed slightly, a spark of her old sharpness. "Adjusted how?" Caldwell spoke before Mia could. "Rest," he said. Emma's gaze fixed on him. "You are hiding something." Caldwell's jaw clenched. "You need sleep." Emma stared at him in silence for a long moment. Then her eyes moved to Mia again. A faint question lived in that look. Mia chose the safest truth. "You are being protected," she said. Emma's eyelids lowered slowly. "That is a strange thing to say." Mia did not answer. She checked the IV site, adjusted the blanket, and kept the room quiet. That night, Mia returned for her shift with a new policy taped to the door: restricted access. Security notified, approved staff only, no exceptions. The hospital had not written it for headlines. It was written for survival. Hank stood near the nurse's station when Mia arrived. He looked tired but satisfied in the way a man looked after locking a door that should have been locked months ago. "They moved him before sunrise," Hank said quietly. "He is in county custody." Mia nodded, keeping her voice low. "Evidence secured." Hank's eyes flicked toward room 712. "How is she?" "Stable," Mia said. "No episode last night." Hank exhaled, a sound like pressure releasing. "Good." Mia started toward the room, then paused. "Hank," she said. He looked at her. "If anyone asks, keep the details tight," Mia said. "We protect her dignity." Hank nodded once. "Already done." Inside the room, the air felt different. Caldwell sat less rigidly, shoulders slightly slumped, as if exhaustion had finally won a small victory. Emma slept. Her face looked the same, still pale, still too sharp at the edges. But Mia sensed a subtle shift in the room's energy, the way a crew felt when a leak stopped and the ship stopped listing. Around midnight, Emma woke and asked for water. She sipped, then paused. "Can I have something else?" she asked, voice quiet. Caldwell leaned forward. "What?" Emma stared at the tray table like she was embarrassed by her own request. "Toast," she said. "Just plain." Mia felt her throat tighten. She kept her face calm. "I will get it," she said. Caldwell's eyes followed her. "You can do that," he said, almost startled. Mia nodded. "Yes, sir." She returned 10 minutes later with a small plate toast butter packet, a little cup of broth. Emma ate slowly, carefully, like her body was relearning trust. She finished half the toast, then looked up at Mia with eyes that were suddenly wet. "I forgot what hungry feels like," Emma whispered. Caldwell turned his head away quickly, like he could not let anyone see what that sentence did to him. Mia charted quietly, hands steady. By the second night, Emma asked for soup. By the third, she finished a full bowl and did not vomit afterward. Doctors came and tried to speak in careful language. "The body can rebound," one said. "It may have been an intermittent exposure," another suggested. Mia listened and kept her face neutral. She did not argue in the hallway. She saved her energy for Emma's care. Caldwell, however, had changed. He started asking questions with a different tone, less command and more inquiry. He learned nurses' names. He thanked them in a clipped but sincere way that carried weight because men like him did not waste courtesy. One night, a young nurse dropped a medication cup on the floor. The pills scattered. Her face went red with embarrassment. Caldwell said quietly, "Take a breath. Do it again." The nurse looked up, surprised. Mia saw it. The Admiral, who had once looked through staff like they were scenery, now spoke to them like they mattered. Emma's color returned slowly, not dramatic, but real. A hint of warmth in her cheeks, less gray around the mouth. Her eyes held focus longer. She began reading again a paperback she had abandoned weeks ago. On the fourth night, Emma woke and looked directly at Mia. "Tell me," she said. Mia paused, a blood pressure cuff in her hands. "Tell you what." Emma's voice sharpened. "Why do I feel better? Why is the door locked now? Why is security outside like someone is trying to steal me?" Caldwell sat up. "Emma." Emma did not look at him. She kept her gaze on Mia. Mia felt the weight of that gaze. Emma was not a child. She was a patient, yes, but she was also a person who deserved reality. Mia set the cuff down gently and chose her words with care. "Someone interfered with your care," Mia said. "It is under investigation. Right now, our focus is keeping you safe." Emma's face went still. "Someone," she repeated. Caldwell's voice was low and tight. "You do not need to know details." Emma finally turned her eyes to him. "I have been dying," she said, "in front of you. And you think I do not need to know why?" Caldwell's jaw clenched. "I think you need to heal." Emma's eyes flashed. "I cannot heal in a lie." Silence filled the room, heavy as the rain outside. Mia watched Caldwell wrestle with something he had avoided for months: helplessness. It was easier to fight unknown illness than known betrayal. Caldwell's voice dropped rawer than Mia had ever heard it. "Derek," he said. Emma's face tightened as if she had been slapped. "Derek," she repeated, not believing. "No." Mia spoke softly. "He has been removed." Emma stared at the ceiling, eyes wide. Her breathing changed, not in the medical panic of an episode, but in the human panic of realization. "I trusted him," Emma whispered. Caldwell's hand moved toward hers, then stopped unsure. "I did too," he said. Emma's voice cracked. "Why?" Caldwell's eyes closed for a moment. When he opened them again, something behind them looked broken. "I do not know," he said. "Not in a way that makes sense." Emma turned her head toward Mia again, and her eyes held fierce clarity. "You figured it out," Emma said. Mia kept her tone humble and factual. "I noticed patterns." Emma swallowed. "Everyone else kept telling me I was fine." Mia nodded once. "Your symptoms did not match your numbers." Emma's eyes filled. "So you believed me?" Mia held her gaze. "Yes." Emma pressed her lips together, then nodded slowly as if she were storing that truth somewhere deep, so it would not be taken from her later. She turned her face away and stared out at the dark window. "I want to sleep," she said. Mia adjusted the light, lowered her voice, and let the room return to quiet. The next morning, Caldwell asked to speak with Mia privately. He waited until a day nurse took over. Then he followed Mia to a small family room down the hall with a worn couch and a coffee table scarred by years of anxious hands. The blinds were half closed. Rainlight slipped through. Caldwell stood instead of sitting. He looked out of place in the soft room, like a man who belonged on steel decks and command bridges, not in spaces made for grief. "You have done more than your job," he said. Mia kept her posture professional. "I did what I should." Caldwell's gaze fixed on a spot above her shoulder, as if he had trouble looking directly at gratitude. "I have commanded people," he said. "I know how to reward performance. I know how to write commendations. None of that feels like enough." Mia said nothing. She had learned that men like him spoke when they were ready and not a second before. Caldwell turned his eyes to hers finally. The look held humility that had not been there the first night. "I failed my daughter," he said, "by trusting the wrong person, by assuming the threat would come from the outside." Mia kept her voice gentle. "It is hard to suspect someone close." Caldwell's jaw worked. Hard is not an excuse. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small leather notebook, the kind officers carried, pages creased. He opened it, scanned a line, then closed it again. "What are your plans?" he asked. Mia blinked, caught off guard. "Plans?" "Career," Caldwell said. "Education. What comes next?" Mia hesitated. Honesty felt risky in front of a man with rank and influence, but something in his face made her answer. "I want advanced critical care training," she said. "ICU, trauma, but it is expensive." Caldwell nodded once, as if he had expected that. "How expensive?" he asked. Mia kept her voice even. "More than I can afford." Caldwell stared at her for a long moment. Then he said, "We will talk again." Mia's pulse quickened. "Sir, you do not need to." Caldwell's tone held command without aggression. "We will talk again." 3 days later, Emma's appetite returned in small, stubborn steps. She asked for eggs, she asked for fruit. She asked one morning for pancakes, then laughed weakly when Caldwell looked startled. "You look like you have not seen carbs in combat," she said. Caldwell's mouth twitched almost a smile. Then he exhaled through his nose in something close to a laugh. Mia stood near the door, checking Emma's chart, and felt the subtle shift in the room the first time the air held more life than fear. Emma's strength returned slowly. She sat up longer. She walked a few steps with physical therapy legs shaking but moving. She began to tease her father again, small barbs that sounded like her old voice. One afternoon she asked for Mia. When Mia entered, Emma was propped against pillows, hair-brushed, eyes clearer. "I heard you and my dad talking," Emma said quietly. Mia paused. "About what?" Emma's mouth curved slightly. "About you." Mia felt her face warm. "He asks a lot of questions." Emma nodded. "He does not ask questions unless he is planning something." Mia kept her tone careful. "You should focus on recovery." Emma's eyes sharpened, amused. "That is what he says too." Emma reached for Mia's hand, briefly gripped still light. "Thank you," she said. Mia swallowed. "You do not have to thank me." Emma's gaze held steady. "Yes," she said, "I do." Mia let the moment pass without adding more. She checked Emma's vitals, documented intake, and moved on. But the words followed her down the hall like a weight. That evening, Mia received a text from an unknown number. "Miss Parker. Meet me on the hospital rooftop at 2 p.m. tomorrow. Robert Caldwell." Mia stared at the screen until it dimmed. The rooftop was not a place patients' families used. It was a maintenance access area with loud machines and chain-link fencing, a place staff sometimes went to breathe air that did not smell like bleach. Mia considered ignoring it, considered telling herself she had no time for strange requests from admirals. But something in Caldwell's tone, even in text, carried the kind of certainty that did not invite refusal. The next day, at 1:55 p.m., Mia rode the elevator up and stepped into a stairwell that smelled faintly of tar and dust. She pushed through the heavy door to the rooftop. Wind hit her first, sharp and clean. The city spread below in muted color. The river beyond it looked like a strip of steel under cloud cover. Caldwell stood near the fence, hands clasped behind his back. He wore civilian clothes, jeans, and a plain shirt, but the posture was pure navy. He turned as Mia approached. "Miss Parker," he said. Mia stopped a few feet away. "Sir," he gestured to a weathered bench someone had dragged up there long ago. The paint peeled metal exposed beneath. "Sit," he said. Mia sat. Caldwell remained standing for a moment, looking out over Norfolk as if it were the deck of a ship. Then he sat too slower than before, as if the last weeks had changed his bones. "I have spent my life believing I could solve problems with resources," he said. "Personnel, technology, influence. If I did not have an answer, I could get one." Mia listened, hands folded in her lap. Caldwell's eyes stayed on the horizon. "In that room," he said, "I had none. I watched my daughter disappear, and every report I received told me she was fine." Mia's throat tightened. She stayed silent. Caldwell finally turned to her. His gaze held something unguarded. "You were the only one who looked at her and refused to accept." "Fine," he said. Mia's voice came out quiet. "I did not want to be wrong." Caldwell nodded. "Neither did I. but you risked it. He reached beside the bench and lifted a leather folder Mia had not noticed. It looked expensive, professional, the kind that held contracts and orders. He placed it on his knees and rested his hand on it for a moment as if grounding himself. "I called in favors," Caldwell said. "I asked people who owe me, people who respect what you did." Mia's chest tightened. "Sir, you do not need to do anything." Caldwell's eyes sharpened slightly. "Yes, I do." He extended the folder toward her. Mia hesitated. Then she took it. The leather was smooth cool under her fingers. "Open it," Caldwell said. Mia opened the folder. Official letterhead. A nursing institute. She recognized immediately a name she had seen online late at night when she could not sleep and dreamed of a future she could not afford. Her eyes skimmed the first page. Acceptance. Her name printed clearly. Her breath caught. She flipped to the next page. Full scholarship. Tuition, fees, material, a stipend. Mia's hands began to tremble. She gripped the folder tighter as if it might vanish. "I do not understand," she whispered. Caldwell's voice stayed steady. "You applied once." Mia swallowed. "Years ago." Caldwell nodded. "They kept your file. You were qualified then. You are qualified now." Mia stared at the paper, eyes burning. The wind tugged at the pages and she pressed them down with shaking fingers. "I cannot accept this," she said. Caldwell's tone turned firm, not loud, but absolute. "You can." Mia's voice cracked. "It is too much." Caldwell leaned forward slightly. "Too much is watching your daughter die while 50 experts tell you she is stable," he said. "Too much is knowing the threat was sitting in your own home and you did not see it." Mia's eyes filled. She blinked hard, but tears slid anyway. Caldwell's voice softened without losing strength. "You invested yourself in saving her. You used judgment that cannot be taught in a lecture. Now I am investing in you." Mia shook her head slowly. "I am just a nurse." Caldwell's gaze held hers. "You are exactly what this hospital needs more of," he said, "and what other families need more of." Mia looked down at the acceptance letter again, at the scholarship line that felt unreal. Her throat worked as she tried to speak. "I have student loans," she said, as if listing reasons might build a wall back around her life. Caldwell nodded once. "This covers your training. The rest you handle as you have been handling everything. One shift at a time." Mia let out a shaky breath. The wind pushed hair loose from her bun, and she tucked it behind her ear with a trembling hand. "You do not owe me," she managed. Caldwell's eyes flicked toward the hospital below as if he could see room 712 through concrete and glass. "I owe my daughter her life," he said. "I cannot repay that. But I can do this." Mia stared at him, and for the first time she saw him not as rank, not as authority, but as a father who had come close to losing everything and would never return to the man he had been before. She looked back at the folder. Then she closed it carefully like it was fragile. Her voice came out small. "Okay," she said. Caldwell's shoulders eased in a way that looked almost like relief. "Good," he said. Mia held the folder to her chest, feeling the weight of paper and possibility. Caldwell stood and Mia stood with him. He paused at the door to the stairwell and turned back. "Go see her," he said. Mia nodded. They walked back inside, down the stairwell into the elevator, returning to fluorescent light and quiet beeps. In the hallway of 7, the air still held tension, but it had shifted from panic to vigilance. Outside room 712, Mia stopped. Through the glass, she saw Emma awake, sitting up, talking softly with a day nurse. Emma's face looked a shade warmer than it had a week ago. Caldwell stood beside Mia, hand on the door handle. He did not open it immediately. For a moment, he simply looked at his daughter like he was memorizing the fact that she was still here. Caldwell's hand stayed on the door handle a moment longer than necessary, as if the simple act of entering required a different kind of courage now. When he finally pushed the door open, the hinges made a quiet sound that felt louder than it should. Emma turned her head on the pillow. Her eyes found him first, then Mia, then the leather folder pressed against Mia's chest like a shield. "Why do you both look like you just came back from a war meeting?" Emma said, voice dry with that familiar Caldwell bite. Caldwell stepped closer to the bed, careful with his movements, as if sudden motion might undo the fragile steadiness they had finally won. "Because we did," he said. Emma's gaze narrowed. "Dad." Mia moved to the bedside table and checked the sealed supplies, then the pump hands steady. She felt Caldwell watching her, felt Emma watching him. Caldwell pulled the chair in and sat. He rested a hand on the blanket near Emma's wrist, not quite touching skin, like he was asking permission from the air. "We have officers downstairs," Caldwell said. Emma's expression changed. The sharp humor softened into alertness. "Why?" Caldwell's jaw worked once. "Because Derek is in custody." Silence filled the room for a breath. Emma blinked slowly, as if language had stopped meaning what it used to mean. "In custody," she repeated, quieter now. "For what?" Caldwell looked at Mia. Mia did not speak. She could not be the one to deliver the full weight. Caldwell turned back to his daughter. "For interfering with your care," he said. "For poisoning what they were giving you." Emma's face went still. Not disbelief exactly, more like a mind refusing to allow the image to form because it was too wrong. "No," she whispered. Caldwell's voice stayed steady, but it was not calm. It was controlled the way a ship's captain spoke during a fire. "Yes," he said. Emma's eyes moved to the ceiling, then back to Caldwell, then to Mia. The room's sounds continued, the monitor's soft beep, the hum of the vent, a distant cartwheel in the hall. Those ordinary sounds felt obscene beside the words. Emma swallowed. "How do you know?" Caldwell's stare held pain he could not hide anymore. "Because we saw it." Emma's breathing shifted. Her fingers trembled under the blanket. "You saw it, and you did not stop it." Caldwell leaned forward, voice low. "We stopped it." Emma's eyes flashed. "After I almost died." Caldwell flinched as if the sentence struck him physically. He did not argue. Mia stepped in quietly, not to soften the truth, but to anchor Emma's body while her mind spiraled. Mia said, "Right now, your environment is controlled. Your supplies are sealed. Security is posted. You are safe." Emma's gaze locked onto Mia. "How long?" she asked, voice thin. Mia chose honesty without cruelty. "We are confirming timelines with investigators." Emma's mouth tightened. She turned her head slowly back toward Caldwell. Why would he do that? Caldwell's eyes lowered for a moment. When he looked up again, something behind them had changed. The commander was still there, but the certainty was gone. "I do not know yet," he said. "Not the full reason." Emma stared at him in silence, then closed her eyes as if the world was too loud. "I want to sleep," she said. Caldwell's hand finally settled fully over her wrist, gentle pressure. "Then sleep," he said. Mia dimmed the light and stepped out of the room so the air could settle again. In the hallway, Hank Dwyer waited near the nurse's station, posture rigid with the kind of vigilance that did not stop when the crisis paused. A detective stood with him, suit rumpled from long hours, a notepad in hand. Hank nodded to Mia. "They need statements," he said quietly. "When you are ready." Mia's mouth felt dry. "I am ready." They led her into a small office that smelled of old paper and stale coffee. The detective introduced himself as Ramirez, voice polite but tired. "Walk me through what you noticed," Ramirez said. Mia did not dramatize it. She gave him times. Door sensor clicks, vital spikes, bottle odor, pharmacy testing requests, security footage, the controlled camera placement and what it captured, the stairwell confrontation and the recovered items. Ramirez wrote without looking up much, then paused. "You ever met him outside this hospital?" he asked. Mia shook her head. "No." "You accuse him?" before Ramirez asked. "I did not accuse," Mia said. "I documented." Ramirez's eyes lifted. Something like respect flickered there. "That is the difference between a concern and a case," he said. Mia nodded once. Her hands stayed folded on the table to keep them from shaking. When Mia returned to the unit, Caldwell stood at the window in the hallway looking down at the parking lot where rain still slicked the pavement. His shoulders looked heavier than before, as if the night had loaded him with new weight that rank could not carry. He turned when Mia approached. "They took your statement," he said. "Yes, sir." Caldwell's gaze moved to her face, searching for cracks. "Are you all right?" Mia hesitated, then answered with the truth she could manage. "I am functioning." Caldwell nodded as if he understood that language. "That is the best you can do sometimes." He looked back through the glass at Emma sleeping. "They will ask her questions," Caldwell said. "Yes," Mia replied. Caldwell's jaw tightened. "I do not want her to relive it." Mia kept her voice steady. "They will try to do it gently." Caldwell's mouth twitched in something close to bitterness. Gently. Mia said nothing. She knew the shape of helplessness. She had lived with it for years, just in different uniforms. The days that followed moved like a slow clearing after a storm. The air stayed heavy, but the lightning stopped. Emma's episodes did not return. With the controlled chain of sealed supplies, her body stopped fighting invisible harm and began the quiet work of rebuilding. On the second day, Emma asked for oatmeal, then finished it without the burning pain that used to follow. On the third day, she asked for eggs and ate them, slowly, eyes closed between bites like she was listening to her body's new language. On the fourth day, she asked for fruit and laughed softly when the nurse hesitated, as if joy itself had become suspicious. Caldwell watched every bite as if he were watching a rescue diver surface. Doctors came with careful faces. Toxicology consults, nutrition plans, labs timed with a precision that looked almost embarrassed now, as if timing had been an obvious tool all along, and everyone had simply set it aside. One physician tried to wrap the recovery in clean clinical phrasing. "The body has remarkable resilience," he said. Emma looked at him, eyes clear and sharp. "It does," she replied. "When you stop poisoning it." The doctor's cheeks colored. He nodded once and changed the subject. Emma's strength returned in small increments that felt enormous. Physical therapy began with sitting on the edge of the bed for 5 minutes, then standing for 30 seconds. Her legs shook. She cursed under her breath with a faint grin that made Mia's chest tighten. "Sorry," Emma said once, embarrassed. Mia adjusted the gait belt. "I have heard worse from priests," she said. Emma's laugh came out surprised, then real. Caldwell watched from the chair, eyes wet but unblinking. In the quiet hours when Emma slept and the unit lights dimmed, Caldwell began to speak to Mia in a different way. Not commands, not questions meant to control, questions meant to understand. "How did you know?" he asked one night, voice low, so it would not wake Emma. Mia looked at the monitor, then at Emma's face. "I trusted what I saw," she said, "and I trusted patterns." Caldwell stared at the floor. 50 doctors, he murmured. And it was a nurse with a notebook. Mia kept her tone neutral. A nurse who stayed curious. Caldwell's mouth tightened. Curiosity saved my daughter. The police investigation moved quietly the way serious things often did in hospitals. No cameras, no gossip. Security kept the hallway controlled. Administrators spoke in closed rooms. Detectives collected the recovered items, logged them, sealed them. The hospital's legal team hovered like weather present but not spoken about. Emma gave her statement 2 weeks later after she could sit upright for an hour without trembling. Detective Ramirez spoke gently, asked questions, carefully offered breaks. Caldwell sat in the corner, silent, jaw clenched. When Ramirez asked how Emma felt about Derek, Emma's gaze stayed steady. "I felt safe around him," she said. "That is the problem." Caldwell's hands tightened on the arms of the chair. He did not speak. After the statement, had Emma asked to see Mia. Mia stepped into the room expecting a clinical request, a medication question, a symptom report. Emma looked up from her pillow, eyes steady. "I keep thinking I should have noticed," she said. Mia moved closer. "You were sick," she replied. Emma's mouth tightened. "I was awake, I was there, and I did not see it." Mia sat in the chair beside the bed. "He used trust as cover," she said. "That is why it works." Emma stared at her hands. "Do you hate him?" Mia paused, careful. I do not have time to hate, she said. I have time to protect. Emma looked up at her, then something like relief passing across her face. Thank you, she said again, softer. For protecting. Mia nodded once, accepting the words without deflecting this time. I heard what my dad did, Emma. Added voice, cautious. About your program. Mia's throat tightened. He did not have to. Emma's eyes narrowed with a faint smile. He does not do things halfway. The scholarship paperwork moved fast. Too fast to feel real. Mia returned to her apartment after shifts and stared at the acceptance letter at her kitchen table as if it might dissolve if she looked away. She read the line about tuition coverage and the stipend again and again, trying to reconcile it with the version of her life that had always required extra shifts, careful budgeting, and a constant background hum of financial fear. When she brought it to work, she did not show it to anyone. She kept it folded in her bag like a private weapon, something that could cut her out of the trap she had lived in. Caldwell did not speak of it again in the room, not loudly, but Mia noticed him watching her sometimes, a quiet assessment that felt less like rank and more like responsibility. He had chosen to do something, and now he wanted to make sure it held. Emma's recovery accelerated with a steadiness that made the unit staff look at her like a miracle they did not quite deserve. By the third week, she gained enough weight that her pajama waistband stopped hanging. By the fourth, she walked the hallway with a therapist, one hand on the rail, the other on Mia's arm, not because she could not walk, but because she wanted the steadiness of a person who had been there at the turning point. One afternoon, while walking past the stairwell door, Emma paused. Her fingers tightened on Mia's sleeve. Was it there? Emma asked quietly. That night. Mia did not pretend to misunderstand. Yes, she said. Emma swallowed. Did he say anything? Mia chose a careful truth. He said he could not lose your father. Emma's face tightened. So he chose to lose me. Mia did not answer. She guided Emma forward one step at a time, letting her body do what her mind could not yet accept. Emma's discharge day arrived in late August, a clear morning with bright light off the water. The hospital lobby smelled like coffee and floor polish. A volunteer at the front desk smiled at Emma as she approached in real clothes jeans that fit again a sweater that did not hang loose. Her hair looked fuller, her eyes brighter, the sharpness in her cheeks softened by returning life. Caldwell walked beside her with one hand hovering near her elbow, a father's reflex he did not try to hide. You do not have to hover, Emma said, amused. Caldwell's mouth twitched. I am not hovering. Emma looked at Mia. He is hovering. Mia hid a smile. He is hovering, she agreed. At the elevators, a few nurses gathered to say goodbye. The charge nurse hugged Emma carefully. A respiratory therapist shook her hand. Hank stood near the edge of the group, hands in his pockets, looking slightly uncomfortable with sentiment. Emma stepped toward him. Thank you, she said. Hank blinked. For what? For believing her, Emma replied, nodding toward Mia. And for doing something. Hank's throat moved. You go live a normal life, he said. That is thanks enough. Emma nodded once, eyes wet, and turned back toward Mia. I want you to walk me out, Emma said. Mia glanced at Caldwell, then back at Emma. Are you sure? Emma smiled. I'm sure. They walked through the lobby together. Emma's hand resting lightly on Mia's arm, not with weakness, but with connection. Caldwell followed a few steps behind, giving them space, his face softened by something like peace he had not known in months. At the entrance, sunlight spilled onto the floor in bright rectangles. Emma paused and turned to face Mia fully. I kept hearing people say 50 doctors, Emma said quietly. Like it is a joke. Like it is a headline. It is not a joke. Mia's throat tightened. No. Emma's eyes held steady. They saw numbers. You saw me. Mia nodded once. You were not invisible. Emma's mouth trembled into a smile. I will remember that. Caldwell stepped forward, then one hand on Emma's shoulder. He looked at Mia, and his voice came out low and firm. Thank you, he said. For looking. Mia held his gaze. Take her home, she replied. Keep it simple. Keep it safe. Caldwell nodded once, yes. They walked out into the sunlight. Emma turned back, once lifted her hand and waved. Mia waved back, standing in the doorway until they were gone. 3 weeks later, Caldwell sat in a conference room with Tidewater Memorial's administrators and risk management team. The air smelled of dry markers and old carpet. Papers were stacked neatly on the table. Caldwell wore a suit that looked like a uniform without insignia. The hospital CEO spoke carefully. "Admiral Caldwell, we appreciate your donation offer, but we need to understand the structure." Caldwell's voice carried command without aggression. "Structure is the point," he said. "This did not happen because my daughter lacked doctors. It happened because the system assumed trust was safety." The risk manager cleared her throat. "What are you proposing?" Caldwell slid a folder across the table. Not unlike the one he had handed Mia, but this folder contained program outlines, training modules, and policy drafts. He had done his homework the way he did everything. A patient safety initiative, he said, focused on late-shift staff, observation training, documentation, escalation pathways that protect nurses who speak up, controlled access protocols for vulnerable patients. The CEO glanced down, then up. "You want to name it?" Caldwell's expression did not change, yes. The risk manager's eyes moved over the page. "The Mia Parker Patient Safety Initiative." The CEO hesitated. "Does she agree?" Caldwell's voice stayed steady. "She will be asked, and she will be honored, not turned into a mascot, into a standard." In the weeks that followed, Mia learned about the program the way she learned most major changes, through a quiet conversation at a nurse's station, not a grand announcement. Hank found her after a shift. "You have a meeting," he said. Mia frowned. "With who?" "With administration," Hank replied. "And your Admiral." Mia's stomach tightened, half dread, half disbelief. She walked to the conference room with her hands steady and her mind racing. Caldwell stood when she entered. The administrators nodded politely. Mia took a seat, posture professional. "Sir," she said. Caldwell's tone softened slightly. "Miss Parker, we are discussing a training initiative." Mia glanced around. "I heard rumors." The risk manager slid a paper toward her. The program title sat at the top. Mia stared at it, then looked up. "In my name." Caldwell met her gaze. "In the name of the standard you set," he corrected. Mia's mouth went dry. "I did my job." Caldwell's voice stayed even. "You did the job the system failed to support." The CEO leaned forward. "We want your input," he said. "You noticed something others missed. We want to teach how." Mia looked down at the outline. Modules on documenting anomalies, recognizing patient care interference, controlled access protocols, working with security, communicating concerns through clinical frameworks. It was real. It was structured. It had teeth. Mia swallowed. "I will help," she said. Caldwell nodded once as if he had expected no other answer. The first cohort ran in November. 12 nurses from the late shift and swing shift sat in a training room with coffee cups and tired eyes. Mia stood at the front with a whiteboard behind her, her small notebook in her hand, the same one she carried in her pocket. She did not dramatize. She did not perform. She spoke in the language nurses trusted. "This is what I wrote," she said, holding up the notebook. "Times, patterns, smells, small things. If you cannot defend it in daylight, do not write it at night." One nurse raised a hand. "How did you not get fired for questioning everyone?" Mia looked at her. "I did not question everyone," she said. "I questioned the gap between what I saw and what I was told." Another nurse asked, voice cautious, "What if you are wrong?" Mia held the question for a moment. "Then you bring facts," she replied. "Not accusations. Facts do not care about rank." Hank stood in the back of the room, arms folded, watching like a guard dog with a conscience. Caldwell sat beside the hospital CEO, silent, listening, a commander, learning a different kind of command. The program spread quietly, first through internal policy changes, then through neighboring hospitals that called Tidewater to ask how they built it. Caldwell funded the expansion without press. He did not want Emma's face on a banner. He wanted nurses trained and doors controlled and supply chains sealed. Mia began her critical care training shortly after the new year. She left Tidewater with a small box of belongings and a heavier sense of responsibility than she had ever carried. On her first day in the program, surrounded by nurses with sharper resumes and steadier finances, she felt the old insecurity rise. Then she remembered Emma's words. "You saw me," and the insecurity settled into something quieter. She took notes. She asked questions. She stayed curious. Emma returned home after discharge, then regained her independence with a stubbornness that made her father both proud and terrified. She completed her graduate school applications at her childhood desk, the acceptance letter from Stanford still pinned above it like a promise she refused to let go. When the acceptance email finally arrived, she called Mia first. Mia answered between classes, breathless. "I got in," Emma said. Mia felt her throat tighten. "You got in," she repeated. Emma's voice shook slightly. "I start in the fall." Mia smiled into the phone, eyes burning. "Good," she said. "Go." Caldwell's retirement came quietly 6 months later. No grand ceremony, a small gathering, a handshake, a flag folded with precision. He moved into a smaller house near the water, where the noise of Norfolk ships drifted through the air like distant memory. He began volunteering with a family support group at Tidewater Memorial, sitting with parents who stared at monitors the way he once had, speaking when they asked, staying silent when they did not. He did not offer false reassurance. He offered presence. In court, Derek Shaw pleaded guilty. He stood in a plain jumpsuit, haircut short, hands clasped in front of him, looking smaller than he ever had in the hospital hallway. The courtroom smelled of wood polish and recycled air. Emma did not attend. Caldwell did, sitting rigid in the second row, eyes fixed forward. The judge's voice was steady. "You had medical knowledge," she said. "You understood harm and timing and dose. You made a choice repeatedly." Derek's voice shook when he spoke. "I did not want her to die," he said. The judge's gaze did not soften. "Want is not the measure," she replied. "Action is." The sentence was measured in years. Caldwell did not react outwardly. When the gavel struck, he exhaled once and stood as if released from a duty he had not chosen. Outside the courthouse, Detective Ramirez approached him. "Sir," Ramirez said, "if you want to add a victim impact statement for the record later, we can arrange it." Caldwell shook his head once. "My impact is my daughter breathing," he said. "Put your energy into preventing the next one." Ramirez nodded, then glanced toward Mia, who had come only as a witness for the record, not as spectacle. Mia held her notebook under her arm, like it belonged there, like it always had. Months passed. The hospital stayed busy. Night shift nurses still walked dim corridors. Monitors still beeped. Families still prayed quietly in waiting rooms. The Mia Parker Initiative became part of orientation, not a special event. A section in the handbook. A poster near the med room. A protocol in the electronic system that made controlled access easier to enforce without personal conflict. One late spring night, a nurse on a different unit noticed a pattern. A patient's symptoms spiked after a certain visitor arrived, always after hours, always with a bag of homemade supplements. The nurse documented times, notified security, requested a controlled chain. The interference stopped before the patient deteriorated. No headlines came, no speeches. A patient simply improved. A family went home tired but intact. At a patient safety conference in Richmond, Caldwell and Mia sat on a panel with hospital leaders and clinicians. The room was packed with people who spoke in acronyms and polished phrases. Caldwell spoke plainly. "I had every resource," he said. "I did not have the right attention until I met the right nurse." Mia spoke after him, voice steady. "We do not need more hero stories," she said. "We need systems that make it easier to do the right thing." After the panel, a young nurse approached Mia, eyes nervous. "I work nights," the nurse said. People dismiss me all the time. Mia looked at her. Write it down, she said. Bring facts. Keep your voice calm. Do not let anyone make you smaller than your observation. The nurse nodded, breathing easier. In Houston, Mia began her ICU work after graduation. Hands steady around ventilator tubing, eyes sharp on subtle changes in skin color, and breathing effort, her notebook still in her pocket. She became the person other nurses called when something felt off, but the numbers looked fine. In California, Emma started her program with a quiet intensity. She sat in lecture halls and thought about how harm could hide inside love, how systems could be blind to what they assumed was safe. She did not define herself by what happened. She defined herself by what she built afterward. Back in Norfolk, Caldwell walked into Tidewater Memorial on Saturday mornings to sit with families who looked like he once looked eyes hollow from sleepless nights. He wore no uniform. He carried no medals. He carried a calm presence and a quiet understanding of fear. And in the late hours, when the hospital quieted and the corridors thinned, a nurse would sometimes pause at a bedside table, lift a bottle, check a seal, and inhale lightly, not searching for drama, only for truth.